Australia is rolling out its new plan to double taxes on the money that you saved for your retirement, and I'm going to tell you why this is so important. For years, governments have not only compelled but encouraged people to save money for their retirement, compelled in the form of various social security taxes or super, basically saying you have to put money into our bankrupt government pension plan, certainly bankrupt in many countries. They've also encouraged people, where I'm from the United States, hey, put money into your IRA, put money into your 401k. We'll give you a tax advantage, because they want people to save money for retirement. I guess because the government knows that they're not going to be able to save you. So, hey, you might as well put some money in and we'll encourage you to do that. But what's happened in recent years is some people have saved a little bit too much. People who started companies that they also happen to work for as employees put a bunch of money into retirement accounts. Peter Thiel famously had a multi-billion-dollar Roth IRA where basically he paid tax on that money, put post-tax money into a retirement account, and now he's got a huge largesse that he can take out from without paying any further tax. And the politicians were outraged that Peter Thiel would be good enough at investing money in his retirement account, and then he had earned enough money that he could put into this Roth IRA. They were outraged that he was able to accumulate so much money, and they weren't able to get their cut, because what we see about governments is they like you to save for retirement, but don't save too much. They like business, but don't get too big or else you become evil and we need to tax you and windfall profits tax and everything else. Now Australia is taking it to a whole new level. They also believe that certain people, in one case, 17 people, that's setting policy for the whole country. 17 people are setting country for the whole policy in Australia. The government so angry that 17 people have somehow ripped them off that they're now going to impose new rules on a whole bunch of you. Here it is from the edgemarkets.com. Australia's government plans to double the tax rate on large pension balances, of course they being the ones to define large, to 30% from tax year 2025 and 26, saying the change will impact, favorite government saying, less than 0.5% of account holders and make the system more sustainable. So we have typical government speak, and I am your government to English translator, so let me tell you what this means. The Australian government has decided to make up an arbitrary number that they determine is too much saving. A normal amount of saving is good, but too much is too much, and we're going to control that. So they're going to double your taxes. They're going to tell you how, oh, don't worry, average person, it only affects less than 0.5% of people. Oh, phew, it doesn't impact me, who cares? If you are that 0.5%, well, whatever, tough. The buzzword being system more sustainable is we can't run a system on our own. We don't know how to do anything sustainable because we're really bad with money. So we're going to use taking more of your money and changing the terms on you after the fact as an excuse, and we're going to prop it up so that the masses think that that's all well and good because it's sustainable. What does that mean? Nobody knows. It's one of those words that sounds good, right? It's sustainable. It's more sustainable. The surprise decision, surprise, to target those with superannuation balances above 3 million Australian dollars, about 2 million US, comes as the government confronts rising debt amid growing spending pressures on defense, health, aged care, and disability support, Treasurer Jim Chalmers said on Tuesday. So remember when they told you they were making the system more sustainable? That's because they screwed up. They created the growing debt, they spent too much money, and as always, they want to come and take more of your money. Now, I have, in my own way, defended the countries where everyone kind of chips in. There are countries in Europe where everyone pays really high taxes. What we see, I think it started to a large extent where I'm from in the US, and then you saw it kind of trickle up to Canada, and now it seems to kind of going throughout all the kind of Five Eyes countries, perhaps, where it's always somebody else. Now, I'm not saying this is exclusive to the English-speaking world. Certainly there are countries, I mean, India, for example, is pushing a very progressive tax system. But only 0.5% of people should pay. You know, there are places in the world that when people need to pay more than 1 out of every 200 people chip in. But the system now in these Western countries is most people don't pay, but you, a dirty, disgusting, nasty, evil, grubby capitalist, you made too much money. They act like it was their doing with their amazing government skills at not knowing how to manage money. It was their doing that you made the money. So now you, the 1 in 200, need to chip in because they couldn't manage the already large sums of money you sent to them. These challenges, this is a quote from Treasurer Jim Chalmers. These challenges mean we need to make more responsible budget choices. because we didn't before. To ensure genuine superannuation tax breaks are better targeted and sustainable. There's like a dictionary these people all go to. They just like, it's like I stayed at hotels for all these years, and I realized like all the 5-star hotels, they all say the same thing over and over and over again. These people have a script. It's sustainable, it's for the children, and it's better targeted, which means you who made money, you who figured out how to become successful, even with 50% tax rates, you've got to pay more. That's what Jim Chalmers said shortly after releasing, by the way, I'm going to be checking on my Australian visa application shortly after this. After releasing a full accounting of tax expenditures, which showed the concessions on pension accounts cost more than $50 billion a year. They talk about things like it's a cost. You gave them money, they were supposed to handle it, they screwed it up, so now they're raising your taxes. You've already paid plenty of taxes, but now they need some more. The change to the concessional rate will affect around 80,000 people and should rake in, we're raking it in now, $2 billion Australian dollars in revenue in the first year, Chalmers said. Further consultation will be undertaken with the industry and other relevant, here's another word from the little dictionary that no real person uses, stakeholders. However, I saw as few as 17 people have balances of more than 100 million Australian dollars, and one, this guy's a really disgusting pig, more than $400 million. And that was what was mentioned in a press conference, was kind of the impetus for doing this, right? Because what's the playbook we always tell you? The playbook is, we're going after the millionaires and the billionaires. And the billionaires, and they put Jeff Bezos' face on the side of a truck, or whoever it is you have down there in Australia, whatever rich guy you have, they put his face on the side of an old truck, and they drive it around, and he's not paying enough. But really, when it comes down to it, if you're in the top 0.5%, which means you make several $100,000 a year, or you've got several million to your name, you're in the top 0.5%. I mean, Carl Icahn recently said in the United States, the average person has nothing, basically. I'm not saying that's good or bad or nice or not nice, but it's the truth. And I think the same is probably relatively similar in Australia. So basically, they hold up 17 people as the really nasty people, but then they just kind of, go a few rungs down the ladder and sweep everybody in with them. And because they define it as large balances, today's 3 million could be tomorrow's 1 million. Even if it's not, inflation will make that $3 million dilutive, and eventually it'll just become easier and easier to subject yourself to double the tax rate. You worked hard your entire life, you paid a lot of taxes, and now you're retiring, you're supposed to be an easy street, but you are not. Especially in a time of high inflation, things cost more. This is going to have an impact. The announcement comes as the center-left Labor government faces growing pressure to wind back spending to avoid fueling inflation. The Reserve Bank has flagged more interest rate increases are under consideration as consumer price growth remains stubbornly high. The Treasurer at a news conference with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese highlighted that the tax change will only apply, of course, will only apply after the next election, meaning it will be put to the electorate first. I'm guessing most people are going to support the top 0.5% paying more. We saw in Canada recently, half of people 18 to 24 said, we want socialism defined as, give us more free stuff, but we don't want to pay more taxes. Same thing happened in the United States. Average person under 30 said, yeah, I'd be willing to pay an extra $100 a month for unlimited free stuff of all kinds. Now, in Australia, you already have some of that free stuff that the US doesn't. But I would imagine this is kind of a general Western world trend where, sure, you'll put this to the electorate, and of course they're going to say, yes, of course, those nasty, greedy people with their 100 million they worked hard for, or with their 3 million, yeah, of course they should pay more because life is tough for us. By the way, I understand life is tough for people. I wouldn't blame the guy with 100 million. I would thank him and I would blame the government. But Australia is going in the wrong direction, just as the UK is about to, just as the US has, and just as Canada continues to go down. So you're going to keep going down this direction. But if you're someone who's having trouble making it in Australia, realize Australia is one of the most expensive countries in the world. You can go and live in like anywhere in Asia if you have a job that you can work remotely. You can go and work and probably cut your living costs by 2/3. You do not have to suffer in Australia, and you don't have to be a millionaire. I mean, you can go to Thailand, you can go to Cambodia, you can go to Malaysia. There's some very nice places you can go, and you will cut your living costs by 2/3. So I am all in favor of people who are struggling. I just don't think the answer is to villainize people who've made a lot of money. So anyway, the 17 people have these big balances, et cetera, and then they go on and on how we're giving everyone else tax breaks and blah, blah, blah. So the point here is, Be successful, but not too successful, right? Every politician all over the world says we love small business, but every big business used to be a small business, and I'm not in favor of the big corporations. I don't enjoy flying on airlines or going to Marriott hotels. They all do a terrible job, but I'm talking about someone, if you started a business and it becomes something that makes you a lot of money, more than you would make running a little corner grocery store or something, and you start making good money, you're no longer in vogue. And then you save money in your retirement account. Oh, that's good, you're saving for your retirement. Yes, you're saving in your super. But when you have too much, we need to take more of it. And it's never because they did everything right. It's because they spent your money badly and they need more. And then they call it a surprise tax increase. And so I'll just tell you my personal experience. I live in the United States. Hey, you should put money in an IRA, you get a tax deduction. I said, I'm not putting my money in a system where they can change the rules at any time like this. I will avoid the one-time tax break and I'll put my money wherever I want so I have access to it for opportunities, and I'm not subject to changing terms. They can change the rules at any time. Now, ultimately what I did was I went where I was treated best. Go where you're treated best. And I decided to live in a country that didn't take 50 cents on the dollar or close to it of what I make. And if you live in Australia or any of these other countries I've mentioned, you know what that is like if you're successful. They are taking close to half, if not half, of your money when all things are told. And so you have the ability, as an Australian, to become a tax non-resident of Australia. Nomad Capitalist helps people. We have great tax folks in Australia, and we have great tax folks in whatever country you might want to go to, whether it's you want to move to Dubai, you want to move to Malaysia, you want to move to Singapore, you want to move to some of the countries in Europe that have tax incentives, whether it's Greece or Italy or Ireland or Portugal or Switzerland. There's a lot of places you can go to cut your taxes a lot, whether it's to zero or much closer to zero than now. That may not entirely help you if all your money's in there. But if you are accumulating money right now and you live in Australia, probably worth considering where can you go and dramatically lower your cost of living, whether alcohol, cigarettes, food, all the stuff that is really expensive in Australia, you can get for a lot less somewhere else. Your just general cost of living goes down, tax bill goes way down, and you can just invest your money without having to worry about putting it in a super. If you live in a country that doesn't have tax on investments, capital gains tax, dividend tax, you just invest it. You don't lock it in some system and hope they don't screw you later. You just invest it. You could probably save across the board 2/3. You could be compounding money so much faster. You will make millions, if not tens of millions of dollars more in your lifetime, depending on how old you are, by simply leaving a system that surprises you with new taxes at the end of your life, after years of you giving them exactly what they asked for. Australians can get second residence in their country. Again, in Asia, plenty of countries that will do that with just some kind of basic income, or maybe you put some money in the bank, maybe you buy a property in some cases. Plenty of countries in Europe will do the same. You can work towards a second citizenship in those countries, and you can keep a lot more of your money. I wouldn't be trusting these people with my money. I wouldn't be trusting that if I make too much, they're gonna come and whack me after they've whacked me time and time again. More than ever, you've seen how they treat you, even being able to leave your country. Now you're seeing how they treat you with your money. Plenty of other options available.